Hi there. My name is Eva Radke, and I'm so grateful to be with you tonight. I really want to thank Andrea Reyes so much for inviting me to speak with you all tonight. And I am so enchanted and impressed with this organization. I love their tagline of a fair-minded community of creative entrepreneurs and activists. And what they do on top of that is create a space for it and create events around it. And I think that we'll see that, like, in with what I've created with ArtCuibe Nation, there's a lot of similarities. So there's some data points to be observed here, and I'm so grateful for your interest and for all this stuff. It's great. One thing I want to point out before we get started is that art and activism go hand in hand, and they have forever and ever and ever. For historically such a long time, and it really does work well because of the passion behind it, the materials, and the organization behind it. So keep it up, love it. Art and activism, ArtCuibe, who I'll talk about that in a minute, does its own fair share. During the pandemic, we made PPE when there was none for the hospitals. In those 42 days before the supply chain caught up, we had the stuff, the know-how, and the passion, and it spilled right into that summer, just as our social justice issues came up again, right? And so it just happens automatically when the artists step right in. So amen to that. If you don't know much about ArtCuibe Nation, I'll let you know we just celebrated 16 years. We started as a Google group in 2007, and we outgrew that, of course, and I developed some software. And today, 16 years later, it's a marketplace and a platform for professionals and vendors in over 100 cities around the world. And it's quite successful. And I really thought about, like, why is that? Like, why does it work? I asked people, I took some surveys, I interviewed, I have my own ideas, but I really did want to ask the community too. And so here's what I sort of gathered from that. There are a couple forces behind that. Number one is the platform. The space has to be built. I'm not an expert on communities. I'm an expert on this community. But I could probably say, like, if you want to have a community, you better have a place for them to go. If you have a message, they need to hear it somewhere, whether that's a digital platform or a space like where we are tonight. One thing that really motivates people is embedded energy. If you've invested in this, then people are so much more likely to follow through on something they've invested in. That could be time, that could be blood, that could be sweat, that could be tears. But if they've invested in it, they're more likely to get energized around it. What it also needs is some leadership. Yep, sometimes it takes somebody to just go, I've had enough, and start a Google group or a nonprofit or build a website. So someone does have to begin it and say it out loud, and then do it, and then maybe quit their job and do that full time and do all the stuff. But that is what it takes. Someone has to lead the charge. And then sort of back that up is like proof and metrics. If you're doing something right, write down your metrics, the pounds, the time, the people, all the stuff, your impact, it matters. So we'll talk about that later. And then I really thought about, okay, like on ArtCuibe in particular, what is it that really motivates people to they love the jobs. Their number one thing they love is getting work. But number two, they love diverting their waste when the job is over. Why is that? Niche interests and trauma bonds, because it's a super stressful, difficult industry full of changes and narcissists, frankly, and but also passions. So if you really love something like flowers or painting or whatever that is, having any waste in that little passion of yours is just a crying shame, and you'll fight to make that not happen. So let's get a little deeper into how at least ArtCuibe did it. So the number one thing I think of is platform. So whether it's a space or it's digital, it's got to be easy to do. You have to know your members, and not only the person who's offering it, but the people who might be taking it, because there's a little symbiotic relationship there, right? So we make forms because remembering everything when you're busy is hard. And the back and forth between, like, how much is it? How much is it weigh? Can I come at 4? Like, all that stuff is a time waster and sort of degrades the experience. So we made the forms have every single little bitty tiny thing you could possibly want to put in there. And so in one email in an inbox, you have all the information that you need and a pink, great big button for you to go and act on it. So it's calls to action, clarity, and the platform and the ease of use. This is just one example here. All right. Embedded energy. This is such an interesting one too, because you hear people throwing good money after bad. Well, that isn't always the case when you have invested in something. So you're much more likely to act if you have a little part of you is in there. So for instance, you see in these photos, these guys made a music video. They made a big heart and they just couldn't put it in a dumpster. So they found a home for it on ArtCube. And just today, this post came in for free, and she writes, "A friend and I painted this seamless for a photo shoot." If it was just seamless of her friend, if they hadn't done that together and it wasn't actually super cool and beautiful, would that seamless be able to have the value or the even ask, like, would it get her to say, I'm going to make a post. I'm going to open up my computer and I'm going to post this thing? Probably not. So when there's expended energy, embedded energy in something, I think people are much more likely to work for it, to get it at home. Another thing that has a lot of embedded energy in it are custom props, big weird stuff. So those huge bananas or that like 6 foot tall Mario 7-Up, I don't know what that is, but that's like that phone booth or a half a zebra. It's like, this is not garbage. This is art. What do we do with it? So this is another example of custom props. Yeah, but that's our embedded energy. And it's an absolute shame. Someone's got to take it. And they usually do. Leadership. Oh yeah. I didn't know I was a leader. I was just annoyed. I'm really just kind of a person who just can't stand it and doesn't let anybody tell me what to do. I mean, there are personality traits that are shared across, like, the rebels with the cause. So someone has to do it. I looked around going, why hasn't someone else done this before? And of course the answer always circles back to you. So I was the accidental entrepreneur, the accidental rabble rouser, an irritant to the film industry, like the corporate side, but to the crew and those below the line who don't have all that say and sway, a hero. Because someone had to say, I'm going to say, this is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. And we're going to prove it. And we're going to work outside of your confines to fix it. So you may not think of yourself as a leader, but you might be if you're just annoyed enough. And if you have the focus and the desire to, like, this is going to change. So I don't think that leaders necessarily come like in the same package. They just come with the same passion and desire to live in the world that they want to live in. There's also a little bit of proof. Again, speaking to leaders or future leaders, or that proof matters. I always had a really hard time bragging about. I felt like it was bragging. See what I just did? Informing the public and people who are paying attention that you're making an impact. And it felt like bragging to me. I just, if you're humble, get over it, because it's the mission that matters. You have to tell people, you have to measure your impact, and you have to not feel like it's bragging or you're not whatever. But what you are doing is you are supporting the mission. And if your name happens to be attached to it, I sympathize, but put it out there. Learn how to write a press release, talk about it, post it, make a reel, whatever it is, but you have to talk about it. And in this case, we have physical proof from a nonprofit that I ran while ArtCube was free on the Google group of film business recycling. And so we had a physical space where people could come and see. you can see on the left there was our empty, before we painted the floor white, there was our empty warehouse. We put the call out, we'd go boop out on ArtCuibe Nation, and the trucks came, and the trucks came, and the trucks came. And those wonderful people down there, that was like one of the first donations that came in those boxes. And they're like, hey, neat, where that would be a daunting task for anybody else. And the earned press that you might get is, you have to put that out there too and let people know about that. And through our earned press, also won us a environmental quality award for diverting all of these out. So you never know what's going to happen. But just don't be shy about your accomplishments. You must let everybody know. Again, more proof and metrics. If you can, for instance, this was how it all sort of worked out. But then, like, I was like, okay, we're going to count every single production we have in. So we had 14 events and 185 films, and other were things like weddings and parties and stuff like that, or pop-ups, a few stages, and then, like, a television production. So knowing that and knowing how that all splits up, and then we were lucky enough to be like a Reuse NYC, used as a model. So they measured it. Those metrics were really important, and they can help you for grants, for grant writing, et cetera, or just to let your membership know that we're making an impact. It actually matters, guys. So record everything. I'll never forget this as long as I live. So I was getting kind of annoyed. I don't like any kind of waste, particularly wasted effort, but wasted stuff too, So I remember a production designer, when I was a production assistant, I was like, all this stuff is going in the garbage. It's terrible. Let's find a Goodwill or something. And they're like, it's not my fault it's in the garbage. If my jobs are all chairs on the beach, I'd throw less away. And I couldn't verbalize it at the time. But I was like, that is not owning. You're certainly taking the paycheck and the glory, but not the aftermath. Like, the boards and the script aren't to blame. So I realized that this industry needed to take on ownership for itself. And thankfully 1998 is a long time ago. One thing we need to understand about scenery and like stuff, or like when you watch a movie or you watch a film or you watch a theater production, every single bit is something. Like, it all kind of blends in like wallpaper in a way. But when I look at that picture, I see a sofa, I see it's 2 tables, 3 tables, some banker's boxes, some set walls, some lighting, a door, and it's so much stuff that all has to go away because there's another play starting. They're prepping while you're wrapping. And so this prep versus wrap bump up is where we come in, and where the genie. Now, I never ever want to hear of anyone, unless you really know your knots and you like, of tying flats to the top of your car. Oh my heavens. But this is the story that I got, that they gave those scenery flats away. And those are lumber, that's fresh lumber that just going to get tossed and never used again. More deforestation. So when you watch television or you go to a production of some sort, look at every single little thing. They had to be purchased, they had to be used on set, and then they had to go somewhere. And ArtCuibe takes care of all that. But I'm sure that we don't capture everything. But really, like, being aware of how much stuff there is really daunting. And please, again, don't ever tie flats to the top of your car. Get a truck. Oh my gosh. So what kind of bonds us together when it comes to this sort of stuff? So I think it's niche passions. So a floral artist is going to be way more likely to post free flowers than like some plexiglass scraps. You know what I mean? They love flowers. It's what their life's about. It gives them a living. They think they're beautiful, whatever. So the niche passions, if they can all gather up in the same place, ooh, you have a movement. Now, when I talk about trauma bonds, it's not as heavy as so many trauma bonds are. But it's a difficult industry. It's a stressful industry. You can get blacklisted. It's freelance. You don't know where your next paycheck is coming. And there's a lot of narcissists and there's a lot of codependency. And it can be a really messed up business sometimes emotionally. So, but at the same time, if you work on a movie with somebody and you get along swimmingly, you're friends. I have some people that I feel like are some of my best friends that I haven't seen in 10 years. And that's true because there is a little bit of that trauma bonding because you're going through stress together. But there's also, and also even if you haven't worked together, like just having this happened a Friday night. It was Christmas, but then they made the change to Thanksgiving, and they were shooting it Monday morning. There's no one open. So ArtCubers came in and they sort of helped their peer out because, oh my God, what would I do? So the sort of stress of it all, or the problems that arise that are shared, also I think promote this sort of community that ArtCube utilizes. And so you can see here, someone said a very last minute request. Does anyone need some green screen? Have any green screen tape? And someone's like, oh no, a digital effects emergency. I better call. I better get in there. And then and so it works that way because we've all been there. And it's also give and take too. Like you might have an emergency too, so it's a little pay it forward before you need it type thing. And then I got this in the orange square, that they were working on a Netflix project, and the NBC, green is universal, right? Prop warehouse. They were shocked at how much they were throwing away, and they were disgusted by it, and they were kicked out and booted out of the dumpster diving. And so, like this sort of outrage, and this sort of like that anger is useful. Like when it's wrong, that can be useful because you don't want to see any more wrongs there. So, I think passion plus all of what I just talked about really sort of works. And there's the crosshairs there. So that's kind of how I see us working. Like I said, I'm not an expert on all communities, but I think that there could be some similarities there, or you would just be able to relate to it. So let me show you just a little bit of the type of stuff that we divert as a community. Lumber. Now, I'd like to reuse everything and make tiny houses for the unhoused out of this stuff. I'm working on it. But this is something that is expensive, particularly post-pandemic. Lumber, it's fluctuating markets. And so all these little extras are add up. And so it's an absolute shame to throw it away. You offer it up, get it out there, and just look at that. Like just in these 5 photos, hundreds and hundreds of dollars of lumber. So, and they're giving it away for free and giving it away and you can sell on ArtCube too, which is fine, but giving it away ensures that it's like, it has a better chance of getting picked up. And so, yeah, if you need lumber, let us know. You should join. And then like flooring, brand new carpeting. We all know how like gross and off-gassing new carpeting is anyway. So using a piece of carpet once and throwing that into a dumpster is unconscionable to me. So, and to many people on ArtCube. So they just give it away. A red carpet, that beautiful blue carpet, and they show it to each other. And I like how like the photos on ArtCube are always really styled. I mean, this is like photo stylists, prop stylists, decorators, on-set dressers. So the pictures end up being really pretty too. But yeah, brand new carpeting. Nope, does not belong in the dumpster. Oh my gosh. Go to if you know any scenic artists, I hope maybe there's some here tonight. Any scenic artist said, how many gallons of paint have you put into a dumpster? They shrink because it's many hundreds, if any career, like with a 10-year career, probably hundreds of gallons that just weren't used and had nowhere to go. So, excuse me. So as you can see here on ArtCube, and even some of our partner businesses like Earth Angel Materials, they'll just post it and put it out there. And there's some production who's like, thank you. That's $25, $30 a gallon. And we don't have that money. So we're so pleased. And look at those cool, fresh, funky flavor colors that are so hip and cool because some stylists pick them out or some, production director pick them out. So yeah, paint needs to stay out of the dumpster and make some art with it. On ArtCube, we're a niche community. These are, so we make chroma color, green boards to show things on, or need to buy airline seats. And so, and they're expensive and hard to make. Down right next to those seats in the bottom there, you see there were 26 church pews, which I personally know are so hard to find when you need them. And so when they find, oh my gosh, a church is being rid of, they have 20, they're now they're at Remix Market. Everyone's like, church pews, go, grab them. So there's just things in this industry that we know that are particularly difficult, niche for us, or expensive. And we do what we can to save them or pass them on because you feel like a jerk otherwise. Neon. So so they designed this like super cool neon DJ booth, and they didn't have a home for it afterwards. And I know that went in 5 seconds. We also put it on our Instagram. I was like, nope, that does not belong in a dumpster. We must find a home for that. And so there's motivation there to keep neon out of a landfill. Thank you. I gave you just sort of a rough overview. I'm gonna answer your questions, and I'm available. But you can also like head to ArtCuibe Nation if you want, or say hello on Instagram. I do everything, and so I'm very approachable. So any other method that you want to get in touch, or just join, or ask some questions or whatever, we'd love to have you. And I'm so pleased to be here tonight. And I think maybe I'll just say thank you and end the video and take your questions. Okay, thanks.